What if you were stuck working in a brutalist nightmare that never seems to end? That was the thought in my mind when I was designing this scene for my next project. As always, we start with the reference. I took inspiration from the Severance office scenes. They invoke a sense of dread and mystery that I wanted to recreate. I mocked up some designs using Photoshop, AI generated images, and stock photos. Then I brought this image into FSpy and matched the perspectives. You can watch my tutorial about using FSpy, installing it, and how to import it into Blender up here. After importing the FSpy project, I got a perfectly matched camera to start modeling from. So we start with the basic modeling and blocking. At this stage, I used only primitives like planes and cubes. Extended a plane to form the walls and the ceiling. I am rendering in cycles because I prefer how it looks, but if you want to go for a stylized look, you can render in EV as well. Next, I added loop cuts and extruded subfaces to form the basic blocking of the room. I keep switching into rendered view after every few minutes to just see how it's looking. Then I added cube for reference and used another cube, went into edit mode and started modeling the basic table that we see in the image. I kept it pretty low poly except for adding loop cuts to block out the drawers at the side. We don't find perfectly sharp edges in our real world, so make sure to add a bevel modifier on what you're modeling if it has a lot of straight edges. You can also increase the segments and the amount. Then I added some more loop cuts and modeled the side panels of the cubicle. If you see any shading issues on your model, you can add a weighted normal after the bevel modifier. I added a camera and set the aspect ratio to 1920 by 816 so that we get the cinematic 2:3:5 aspect ratio. Now that the cubicle was modeled, it was time to extend it endlessly in all directions. So I added an array modifier and you can change the offset on the axis that you want. Increasing the count increases the number of array objects. It's a very useful modifier when you need a large collection of objects repeated geometrically. I increased the count on the array modifier to fill the space. Now we had a row, but to make columns of it, I added another array modifier, increased the offset on the x-axis, and increased the count as well. One light, this place was already looking very creepy. I like to start with some base lighting just to get the feel of the space, so that we can make the final adjustments and blocking. The best part is since we use the array modifier, we can select the cubicle, go into edit mode, scale it, edit it and do whatever you want, and all the array objects will change on their own. I used Alt-D to make instances of the cubicles since I need more rows in the back. Alt-D is less system intensive because it creates an instance or a clone, whereas Shift-D will create a duplicate which uses more system resources. I added some loop cuts on the ceiling, selected some faces and gave them an emissive material to simulate the lights. I could have used area lights, but I wanted to go with this method for now. Set the lighting of the scene to whatever you want it to feel like. White for pristine and clean. You can go for a bluish shade if you want a dystopian cold look, or a warmer color which your scene demands. At this point, I renamed all the objects in my scene because you don't want to be dealing with cube 1, cube 2, cube 3 and so on. So that brings me to adding another cube around your scene and setting it to volume scatter to add some depth and haze into our scene. Since we have used the array modifier and Alt-D, just editing any part of the base cubicle mesh reflects all the changes in the copies. Now we have an empty office. It's time to add details and make it look lived in. For this, I hit up our trusty old friend Sketchfab. You can browse and find any free assets. Definitely give the credits to the actual creator if you plan to use them in your projects. I use the Sketchfab plugin to easily bring all the models into Blender right away without the hassle of texture setup and anything like that. You can watch the video up here to know more about the plugin. I started placing assets one by one like chairs, cups. I modeled some low poly basic assets like this dustbin. Then I found some keyboards, electronics and stuff like that and placed them around my scene. You can also use Blender Kit, which is an amazing plugin that has materials, objects, HDRIs, whole scenes to set up your projects, a lot more. The more details you add in your scene, the better it looks. But don't waste geometry on the places that will not be visible. So I added the electronics only in the first 2 rows of the cubicles because the others were going to be occluded by it. Make sure to offset every repeated asset a little, rotate it a little bit, scale it up, down, move it a little to add random variation. Then I used another amazing add-on called Sanctus library to add materials to my objects. I was under a time crunch and this plugin has amazing materials that you can use right away in your scenes, and they even have amazing editing capabilities. Then I started selecting different parts of the base mesh like the ceiling and the walls and testing out different materials on them. I also use Blender Kit all the time, so I checked out some materials from here as well. Use whatever you like. I was looking for worn, used materials for this scene. No office is complete without papers lying all around, so I brought some low poly papers from Sketchfab, separated them into individual objects and placed them around the scene. If you want, you can crumple some of them by subdividing it and adding a displace modifier with the clouds texture or any other texture. You can watch the video up here for full details about it. And this is what we had at this point. Then I used the free Geo Cables add-on by Amandeep to add some cables to the backs of the cubicles. I'll add the links for all the add-ons I mentioned in this video in the description below. Then I wanted to create a logo for this dystopian office we are designing. Created some designs using Leonardo AI. Brought them into this free photo editor which is completely free and runs in your browser. Brought it in as a transparent PNG, made a new material and gave it some emission strength. Sanctus library also has this amazing decal feature which lets you add decals onto any surface very easily. You can even add your own custom decals, add border damage, tearing, etc. in just a few clicks. I added some decals from Sanctus and then generated some dystopian posters using ChatGPT. I changed the materials many times while building the scene. You don't have to always pick a look and stick to it. You'll get ideas as you work also. I got a little overboard adding details like fire extinguishers in the background, CCTV cameras on the top which are animated that you barely see. Got some nice indoor plants to add from Blender Kit. I was legit adding details for hours for almost one whole day. Coffee cups, file cabinets, post-its and anything that you might find in an office. Now it was time for the final refining and polish. Check the materials, tweak everything, adjust the lighting and add any animations that you want to add at this point. The final step was adding some red accent lights at the corners and then adding some flicker to the lights on the ceiling. Do this by setting some keyframes on your emission strength, going into the graph editor and adding a noise modifier on your strength. You can watch the video up here for more details about this effect. I was happy with how it was looking now. I added my animated character for the scene that I'm building this for and then rendered out this view. Hope you all like this video. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below and what you would like me to build next. Follow me on Instagram at pixelbender_in and also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more details on my upcoming animation projects.